Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to do a couple simple paintings that explore a lot of the different techniques we learned in class. So just follow along. You'll end up with a couple little what I call gems. They could be postcards that you send to someone. Or you might put them into a little frame, or who knows, do whatever you like with them. But I think it's important to put into practice some of these techniques, experimental techniques, all the things we've learned. You know, we've done it in an abstract way, but this is really a more practical way that artists use these things. So supplies you're going to need for today. Let me bring those up and show you under the document camera. You are going to need 2 small pieces of watercolor paper. You can tape them down if you like. I'm not going to because, because frankly, I don't know what I'm going to do with these. But if you want yours to remain flat, of course, tape them down. You'll want an extra piece of just regular old cheap paper. We're going to use that as a stencil in combination with our toothbrush in a little bit. Of course, you need your set of brushes, and make sure you've got a toothbrush, some round brushes, a very small brush. And of course, you're going to need your paints. So you can use either your good paints or you can use these, whichever you prefer. And you can just work with these palettes right here. Although I'm going to flex on you a little bit. I'm just using a white plate to do some color mixing. And if you have one of those at home, it's kind of nice to work with. So here we go. We're going to actually do 2 paintings at once because, as you have learned now, a lot of these things need a little time to dry in between. So let's get started with our first one. And of course, you need some water. Failed to mention that, but make sure you've got some water next to you. And I'm going to put my paints over here to the right so you guys can see what I've got going on. All right, trying to get this into view for you guys. All right, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my rule of thirds. And I'm thinking of a landscape that has, maybe 1/3 down here, but a lot of sky. Okay. So I'm going to mix up. I'm going to do a wet in wet technique. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab a large brush. You choose. It could be your large flat or your large round. I'm a big fan of the rounds. So I'm going to get the top 2/3 wet with water. Not soaked. I just dipped my brush in twice. And I'm making a line here. So I know you can't see what I'm doing, but if you just look right now, you'll see I'm going about 2/3 the way down, and just make sure this area is completely covered. Now I'm going to mix up some blue paint. So I've got some water here, but I'm going to start with a dark blue and really just make up a good batch of dark blue. There we go. And something I know is that skies are darker at the top. So I'm going to make my dark blue at the top. And when I do this, I'm going to leave some space for clouds. So I'm going to touch up here, but maybe there's a cloud that lives right there. Maybe there's a friend of his hanging out right there. There we go. All right. And I'm actually going to make that one bit darker. So I'm going to dip into my dark blue again. I just want it to be a little bit darker. And since it's wet, I can go right over the top of this and add a bit more pigment. There we go. Now I'm going to use this lighter blue that's over here. And I'm just going to mix that up right in here. And I'm going to hopefully let that bleed into this blue that's already up there. There we go. Ooh, I like that. So I'm going to work it into that other blue a little bit so that everything just kind of bleeds. And lastly, I'm just going to use some water here to try to get this blue to come down even a little bit further. All the way down to about that 1/3 mark down here. Now, there's no way that yours is going to look like mine because it's wet in wet. And so yours is going to bleed and move and do different things. And whatever answer you just got is going to be just fine. As long as you use some blue, maybe try to make a cloud, yeah, you're going to be in good shape. Next, I'm just gonna let this actually dry right now. You know what, I'm gonna do more thing. I'm gonna do this bottom part, and I'm gonna put some dark blue down here. I'm getting it a little bit wet first. And I'm gonna take some more of that dark blue that I've got. There we go. Because I'm envisioning a reflection. You might even leave some space for the clouds. And then a little bit of that brighter blue. There we go. So let's try to hold this up so you can see what I've got going on here. So I've got a 2/3, 1/3, dark blue, light blue. It's kind of odd how it shows underneath the camera. Mine looks much more intense and much brighter. It's hard to see. But anyway, we're just going for something like that. And just let that sit. Now you can see my paper is a little bit wavy. If you look at the side, it's got that wave to it. Not really what I like. Probably should have taped it down. But for now, I'm just going to move this aside. And that one's just going to sit over there. And I'm going to start on my next painting. While that one dries, we can get cooking on this one. All right, this time, I'm going to use more of a dry brush. So I just squeezed all the water out of my brush so it's more dry, and you can see it's kind of splayed like that. And I'm using a large round brush, probably a number 8 or number 7. There we go. And I'm going to just pick up some paint. And it might make your brush form a point again, and that's okay. Now this time I'm going to paint the same kind of sky, but with a dry brush effect. Let's actually get a little bit more pigment here. I don't want it to be super watery. Watch this. I'm going to paint the top nice and dark. And now I'm going to make some clouds, just using some horizontal lines like this. Keep your brush moving horizontally. There we go. And if you want, you can dip your brush into that lighter color and kind of continue. Maybe work that up here a little bit. So now I've got a couple different flavors of blue in there. There we go. But this time I'm trying to actually see some of the texture of the paper. Just using a dry brush. Try to get this a little straightened out for you. There we go. So it's the same basic idea that we just did with the wet on wet, but this time we're not adding more and more paint. We're just letting it be kind of dry, letting the texture of the paper shine through. All right, let's have some fun. Let's do this. Let's make a path right in here. I'm going to use a little bit of brown, a little bit of yellow, just to make a kind of a tan color. And here's what I'd like you to do. Start right over here. And I'm just using a round brush to do this. So not in the middle, but over here, and just make a line that goes this way, right off the edge, maybe a little above the corner. And let's make another one that goes this way. So this looks kind of like a road or a path. And then see how I just use the point to do that, but now I can lay this brush down flat and just fill that area really quick. There we go. And now we've got a path. All right. Next up, let's dip back in here. I'm going to make some trees, but some trees that are way off in the distance that, oh, they're going to be really simple. And I think I'll grab a smaller round brush for this one. And, ooh, I've already got some colors here that might make a green. That's an ugly color. But I'm just going to go in here and mix up some kind of a greenish color. I don't like to just use green often, just right out of here. But there's some interesting green. Maybe I'll even add a little bit of yellow to that. I love making interesting colors. There we go. So just mix up any old green and watch this. It's really simple. You could just use the point of your brush if you want, or you could use the big flat part like this. But we're just going to go right down this line and just move your hand in strange ways, like you just had too much coffee and your hand is just moving however it wants. You might have some tall trees, and these are trees that are supposed to look like they are, oh, maybe a half a mile away or something, a quarter mile away. So they don't look exactly like trees. They look like little brush strokes, but they're going to read like trees. We can fake people out to make them think they're trees. Maybe you want to make a really tall one or a really wide one. And it's that simple. Just doing that, they look like trees off in the distance. Now, me personally, I want to have some fun. I'm thinking about fall. So I'm going to use some other colors so they're not just all the same kind of green. I'm coming in here with some yellows. So you can do some of that. I mean, you could use reds or oranges, or I'm just mixing it up. So I have some variations. Maybe some really dark green. Why not? There's a bright green. So just play with that for a second and notice how the brush can create all kinds of different variations. All right. Next up, I'm gonna paint this field in. I'm picturing a field of grass. So again, you're not gonna get the exact same color as me, and that's okay. But I'm picturing maybe something lighter, a nice bright yellow. Ooh, I like that color. It's kind of a yellowish green. Yeah, there we go. So I'm just gonna paint this right in here, and it might bleed into those trees a little bit. That's okay. In fact, I think I'll add some of this green too, and just mix it in. So I know I'm doing this quick, and you're probably thinking, hey, slow down, and hey, how did you get that color? Don't try to get the same color. Here's what I want you to do. Just make your own unique yellows or greens and just fill that area in. But I would recommend that you keep your brush strokes kind of going horizontal so that it looks flat. If your brush strokes are going up and down, then it's going to read like grass or something. So just go horizontal. You might even have a darker area in here. Oh, that's a little too bright. Let's tone that down. There we go. Just whatever you feel like. I'll do the same over here. You decide, but stick with the yellows and the greens. I mean, you could make bluegrass or brown grass or whatever you want, but I think this will look good. All right. Ooh, it's starting to look like a pretty cool looking landscape. All right, I'll bet your sky is dry enough that you could take some yellow. I'm gonna clean up my yellow first because I've been dipping back into it. So I'm gonna get this nice and clean. Tapping my brush. I'm gonna squeeze out that brush and pick up any residual green that's in there. All right, I'm picturing a sun up here in the sky. So this time, I'm just gonna twirl my brush in here for a minute. So I've got a really pure yellow. There we go. And I think I'm gonna add a little touch of another color to it. Maybe a little bit of this cool yellow here. I'll just mix those together. Because again, I don't want to just use one color. There we go. Ooh, I like that. It's kind of a mix between these two. Get a little bit more of that. All right, and I've got a lot of pigment here, and I think my sun is right up here. So I'm really trying to lay that on thick. Let's even add a little bit more. If you just tap with the point of your brush, it's a good way to go. All right, there's our sun up in the sky. All right, our sky is probably dry enough to handle this right about now too. Check this out. I am just going for some black, and I've got my thinnest, tiny little baby brush. You should have something like that. And I'm just picking up some black, and watch this. Here's how you can make some really easy birds. Now your painting has to be dry. Yeah, it's dry in that area. So I wouldn't do this on the ground, but watch this. I just go this way and this way. Now I made that look easy. It's not that easy. It's hard to get it to be pointy on the end. I'm just trying to show you a technique. Let's do another one here. Maybe this one, its wings are way up high. Oop, I need a little more water. Watch this technique. Wings are up high. And I just cross them over a little bit. You could also make one where the wings are down like this. There's a little body there. I'll make one off in the distance that's super small. There we go. So that's a very delicate operation, right? You're just using a very small point. It's very difficult. Maybe there's even just a couple way out here in the distance you can barely even see. And they're just little dots. They're just kind of flying in from the distance. Okay. Let's see how my other painting's doing. Ooh, I like how it's looking. All that wet and wet technique. Still a little bit wet though, so we're gonna have to wait on that one. And that's what happens when you get your paper soaked with stuff. Sometimes you just have to wait. All right, let's use our toothbrush because my land here, my path is just about dry. So I'm going to use this piece of paper and I'm just going to tear it. And I'm trying to block out this path. Oh boy, it's still a bit wet there. Let me try to just dab that a little bit. I can come back and put in more in there in a bit. But what I'm going to do is watch this. I'm going to block out this one side. And I'm just going to fold this so that I can block out that other part. Come on. There we go. And there we go. All right. So I'm using a stencil and I'm just trying to get something on that path. And I'm going to use my toothbrush. Here it is. And I'm going to mix up just a brownish color. Now I know, because I've already got some green here, but if I add some red to this, I will get a nice brown, because green and red are opposites. And when you mix opposites or complementary colors, you get brown. Oh, I like that. It's a good brown. Of course, I could add a little brown. I've got brown. Again, I hate to just use just one color for anything. You can add a touch of black just to darken it up. All right, I've got a decent brown here. And I'm just going to pin this down, hopefully not make too big of a mess. And I'm just going to make my path look kind of gritty, like there's some sand or rocks or things. There we go. Just lift that away. I like that. I guess I could have done that with just a paintbrush, but that was a lot quicker and a lot more fun. All right. Now I did that a bit quick, and I am going to come back in here and actually put in a little bit more value in those trees because I just knocked some out of there. All right. So it's kind of hard to see because there's a glare, but there we go. All right, let's use our fan brush. We haven't used that. Let's try a new technique. Mix up any color you like. I'm just going to make a dark green. I basically have a dark green here. Just going to grab a little bit more. Add a little brown. Yeah, I like that. All right. Now, I don't want this fully loaded with paint because if you do, it will be solid and look just like a fan. I've only got 3 pieces or parts to this, but I'm going to try to press and get a lot of that paint to come off. There we go. And I think even on a side piece of paper, I'm going to try to get some of this paint off of there. That's better. I'm going to do one more thing, even though this is wet with paint. I'm going to pull on it. Oh, there we go. I just pulled on the edges of this to really open it up. Yeah, I got my hands a little dirty, but that's really what I'm looking for. Hopefully you can get your brush to do that, to become really splayed. S-P-L-A-Y, splayed. Now, I'm going to just make some tall grass here. Hopefully that's pretty dry. Yeah. So we have to be dry first, or else, of course, it's going to be bleeding. But watch this. Just going to make some grass. Oh, I want to go a little darker. I really want this to show up. All right. Here we go. And I'm going to use pretty much the whole brush down here to make some grass. But maybe I'll just use just the corner of the brush, just this part right here, just to make some that's alongside the path. There we go. Maybe there's some over here. So I'm just trying to make some grass. Now back in the distance, do these really short. You're just trying to flick the brush so that you just get little 2 or 3 millimeter little pieces. Of course, up here, you could make really tall ones because these are in the foreground and they're right up front. But as you go back in space, you might just go like this and just touch or tap because that grass is in the distance. We can't really see, we can't see much grass. So wherever you want, just pop in a few, maybe over there, over here, going off the page. But that'll give this some nice texture. All right. All right, it is time to have some fun with this thing. So we really have a lot of dry brush techniques here. We're going to add a tree right here. One thing you should know about landscapes is you generally work from the back to the front. Like I just put in the whole background, but now I can put stuff on top of it, okay? So I'm grabbing, let's grab a small round brush. I've got a number 6 here, but it could be a number 3 or 4. And I'm gonna just grab some brown. Oh, I like a little bit of green in there too. I like to kind of sometimes mix colors right here and just muddy them up a bit. I don't just want to use brown though, because I'm going to make the tree trunk first. Maybe a touch of black just to darken it up. So another unique color. It's kind of a brownish black with a hint of green. And I'm going to start up here and just use the tip of the brush. And watch this as I just make myself a tree. Ooh, yeah, I'll make it a little bit bent. Now, I started with just the tip of the brush, but as I worked down, I made it a bit thicker near the bottom here. You could even kind of ground it like this. So it looks like it's grabbing hold of the earth. All right, let's do a few branches. And notice how that dark color goes right over top of the light color. Let's zoom out here so you can see the whole thing. All right, so I'll make a branch that goes this way. And this time I'm going to go from thick to thin. Or if you prefer, you could start out here and go from thin to thick. We're just making a few branches. Let's do a branch off of that branch. Maybe it splits up here. What we're really trying to do is make some Y shapes. You can hopefully see those Ys everywhere. Typically, trees don't make a W. Like I wouldn't just, a branch doesn't go up and say, all right, today we're going this way, and this way. It's just, it happens sometimes, but typically it does not. Oh, let's just do a couple more. And you might even want to use your really small brush, whatever your smallest round brush is, and add some really fine details. There we go. All right, I'm going to pick up a little bit of this with my fan brush and just give this tree a little shadow by adding some darker grass underneath this tree. This can kind of ground it so it feels like it's really sitting there. And since my sun is to the left, it might make sense for my shadow to sort of go over to the right. And don't make your shadow black. It's you've never walked under a tree and said, ooh, black grass. No, it's just darker green, right? Now you could leave it like that and add more branches. Maybe this tree has lost all of its leaves, but you could use, oh, I've got my round brush again. I'm gonna mix up a unique yellowish green here. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, it might be too yellow. Add a little more green. Mix yourself up, whatever color green you like. All right. And now I'm going to make some leaves. And I'm just going to do this really quick. How quick that was. I mean, yes, you could go really slow and make one leaf, two leaves, but we're not trying to draw individual leaves. We're just trying to really quickly put in a texture. You could even lay your brush down more flat and go quicker like this and fill a big area. But notice how those darker colors sit right on top of the others. There we go. If you want to have some fun, you can come back in and mix it up with a little different color to add a little different flavor. It's always going to look more exciting when it's got different colors. Yeah, I like that. And here's just one little pro tip. Near the bottom, I always try to make it a little bit darker because all those leaves that are up high are going to be creating a lot of shadows on these ones below. So just near the bottom, try to add some darker greens. It can really help. Do a few more here. Well, this one is just about done. We've got a lot going on here and pretty much a full landscape. But you can add other details to yours. If you want to draw, for example, maybe there's a person, you could just draw a simple silhouette. I'm using my small brush. Maybe there's the person's head. And I've got some shoulders here. Maybe someone's going for a walk down this path. So you don't have to be good at drawing or painting people. You could just do something like this, something simple. Oh, it bled a little bit. That's what I get for being impatient. Oh, it's going to want to keep bleeding. Modeling mistakes. That's what I'm doing. Hopefully that'll be dry enough. Oh, well. So we've got a little person hanging out there. In fact, I'm going to give this person a little bit of a shadow too. That would be we'll just use that bleed and let that shadow come over this way. There we go. Or you could have two people on your path if you like. You could add other things, like maybe there's a, oh, I don't know. Maybe there's a rock hanging out over here. Of course, that rock is going to have some green in it. So let's mix up something else here. I'll put a little shadow on that rock. Okay. Well, I'm going to consider this one done. There's more we could do to this. I guess the last thing I would say is you might want to just add another tree somewhere. If you're really into this painting and you like it, what happens if you put another tree out here? Just a really small one that's hanging out. It's just in the distance. And we add some leaves to it. There we go. Make it a little darker at the bottom. And a little cast shadow. There we go. So always think about that light source and think about the direction of the shadows. That's all important. Okay. So you could do a lot more to this. I'm just trying to show you some basics and some techniques. It is time to return to this one, which should be about dry by now. So now we can have some fun with this. All right, here we go. All right, I'm going to add a bit of a landscape here. So I'm just using, again, a medium-sized round brush. And I'm just going to dip into my black here and maybe some of these muddy colors. And I'm just going to stick pretty much with black. And watch this. Right here, if you can, do your best to make a nice straight line. There we go. And let's try to make the top of this really jagged, really rough, so it looks like a mountain. A little more paint. There we go. Nothing to it. I'm going to add a little more water and just try to fill this in. This is just some land out in the distance. This last thing I just did, you could make this one solid color, but watch this. If you've got some paint on your brush, go like this. And notice how that makes it look like the mountains are kind of separate from one another. It's hard to see underneath there, but. All right. If this is water down here and that sky up there, let's see if you can go like this. Think of this like a line of symmetry. You could even turn your paper, and all I want you to do is try to make it look like the left side, but by just using lines. I'm just using just the point of the brush. Or if you're more comfortable, you could do it this way. Now you can kind of see how it looks like little waves. Just using the point of the brush. There we go. I like it. All right. Hopefully you got that to work. I'm going to continue with my black. And I'm going to make a rock hanging out right down here. So I'm just going to go up and down and something like that. And I'm not going to color this all in because I want it to look rocky. Maybe the light source is over here to the right think about this yellow as the light here. And you could just use just the point just to make it look kind of rocky. There we go. And I'll see if you can do that again. See if you can use this technique to try to make some reflection. There we go. And mine's not perfect. It might not match up exactly. Might even make it a little darker on the dark side. That's kind of cool. All right, I'm going to use my fan brush again because that's a fun one. And I am going to put some tall grass or weeds over here. So I'm just mixing up. Right now I've got a blackish greenish color. Oh, it's kind of a ugly dark green. And since my brush is really loaded right now and it's not fully splayed except for 4 parts, I'm going to turn it this way and just go up like this. And that will help to, ooh, look at that. Let's try to get that off quickly. Well, that might be worth showing how to get rid of that. I'm going to use some clean water here and just try to scrub that a little bit. See if I can make it disappear. Sometimes you can scrub that right out of there and just move that paint around, and no one will even know. You kind of have to catch it early on. Well, that was a little disappointing that it did all that. So I'm going to do this a little slower. There we go. Just trying to make some weeds over here. Now already my brush has a lot more splaying to it. And so now I will use it flat like this and just bring up some weeds. Maybe there's a little bit of land over here. I'm going to grab some black here and just do a bit more of that. All right. So that fan brush really does some cool stuff. All right. I'm going to use my smallest brush, this little guy, and I've got it loaded with some black paint. And watch this. I'm just going to touch here and there. Make it look like some little plants or cattails or something. Little things that are flowering, who knows? I don't need a ton of those, but I just want a few. There we go. You might try your bird trick again. I mean, we are near water, so, and I know that's a bit wet over there, so I'm going to do one right up here. Just a nice big bird soaring in the sky. There we go. All right, this one's just about done. I think I'm just going to add a little bit of blue. And I'm just going to add a few more waves in here. Just some little ripples on the water. Keep them horizontal and your water will look flat. I'm just going to add a few more weeds over here too, because I can. All right. So this one's just about done, but if you feel like you've got room for a sailboat or something, or you want to put a hot air balloon in the sky, feel free to do that too. I think I'll do one quick thing here. Maybe I will make a hot air balloon hanging out there in the sky. Maybe it's way up here in the clouds so we can really see it. All right, just need a little dot underneath it. There we go. I don't want a huge basket. I just want a little dot underneath it. Well, I think I'm going to call this one done. So look at that. We have not been here too long, and we've got two complete paintings. And we tried a lot of different techniques, from fan brush to toothbrush to stencils and wet and dryer brushes and all kinds of stuff. So hopefully you got to see a little more of the practical application of all this stuff. All right, that's it for today, folks. Put those in your sketchbook. You just earned yourself some more points.